Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode. In this episode, I'm going to be showing you how to interpret a degree audit. This is part 2 of 2. Please refer to the video before this one of how to generate a degree audit. Now, when I'm talking to students about what even is a degree audit, I kind of think of it like your electronic graduation tracker. So this will show you all the classes that you need to graduate, helps track your progress. It's an easy viewing page to kind of make sure you're on track. And most advisors are going to refer to this in your appointments just to make sure that it's all looking to plan. So again, super important to make sure that at the top, this is your name and the major that you're trying out in this audit. As well, on the left-hand side, you'll see the date and the time. So you can actually see, if you can't remember if this is a new audit, you can always see the timestamp because, as I mentioned, you will need to run a new one if there's any changes to your account. Now, we have a couple of visuals here at the top. Now, what I want to make sure that you understand is these graphs at the top, especially this pie chart. If you put your cursor over it, you'll see that green means complete, and in this case, it's 27 complete credits. Blue is anything in progress, so 12 in this case, and red, so 83, is unfulfilled. So those are kind of the three main colors that you're going to be seeing in the audit today. Now, a lot of students look at this pie chart and think, oh, this is my progress to graduating with my major. Not necessarily so. In order to graduate, as we've looked in other videos, you have to have a total of 122 credit hours. This pie chart is doing that math. So the 83, the 12, and the 27 will equal 122. So keep in mind, this may not always correspond to progress in your major, and same with this bar chart in the middle as well. So good to keep in mind. The main information you want to pay attention to is in this items below. As we move through this beginning portion, all of this wording will remain the same no matter what audit you look at. So all this first paragraph is saying is this is not an official transcript of grades. If you are needing to show proof of enrollment or proof of your grades for a scholarship or something like that, this is not what they want to see. There are other places in your CIS where you can pull an unofficial transcript. So that's all this portion is saying. Now here, what this is saying is there is a minimum U of U GPA requirement to maintain good standing. This is checked green because the student in this case has maintained the minimum GPA. So no worries here. Total hour requirement, again, so this is what I was mentioning above. In order to graduate, you must have 122 credit hours. Some students will have more if they're doing a double major, a minor, or a longer degree. But just know this is the degree audit system kind of doing that math right here. This section will tell you if the student is repeating any courses at the university. In this case, there's not anything in here. Upper division hours. So this is also really important. In order to graduate, you are required to have a minimum of 40 upper division hours required, meaning 3,000 level or above. What this is doing, again, same thing, is it's just going to start calculating all of those to ensure that's the case. Usually this won't be too difficult as your major should build in a lot of upper division credits for you anyway, but this is just in case. Here we have residence hour requirement. So this requirement is only relevant within the last 30 hours prior to graduation. So this is primarily of interest to transfer students. We want to make sure that students who have transferred to the university take enough classes here in order to graduate with a U of U degree. We don't want students coming here with 3.5 years, coming here for one semester and then graduating with not enough credits at the U. So this is just going to help calculate that. It doesn't really have anything to do with out-of-state residency like a lot of students seem to think that it might. What this is doing is it's just calculating your last 30 hours here. It's saying that no more of the 10 of the last 30 credit hours may be taken as transfer, test, special credit, etc. So most all of this information is going to remain the same no matter what audit you run. Once we get to general education requirements, this is where we might see some differences. So as you've hopefully watched our other videos, especially the one that goes through the graduation requirement worksheet, like I mentioned, this is kind of the digital version of this. What I love using about the audit is it's very interactive. You can actually click on your different options. So as you probably know, for your AI requirement, American institutions, you do get a choice between 3 classes. Now it's really nice to go through the audit because you can actually click, read about the class here, see if there are any prerequisites, see the course type, so a lecture, see what it fulfills, again, an AI, and then you can make your decision from these three. Now in this case, don't worry about the question marks. As long as I've been here, the question marks are usually always there, just because it's not linking to the catalog. So don't worry about that. But this is a great way to kind of narrow down and choose your options. So in this case, the student, this section, the writing requirement 2 is blue, and that's because we know this requirement is in progress. So the student is currently taking it, which is the IP, standing for in progress. Now the student has already completed Math 1030, which qualified for their QA or math requirement, and here's the grade. So this student had to run a new audit after fall 2019 to see this new audit turn green in this specific section. So here we see they're still needing their statistics, and this is something that I wanted to talk about. So here at the U, we actually allow for classes to double count. I've had a class triple count when I was a student. So there's a lot of different options between a class that could potentially count for your gen ed, your major, potentially a minor, something like that. But we do have those options. So the reason I chose psychology is because psychology does tend to have quite a few options for double counting classes, and I'm going to show you how you can identify that. So here I can see PSY. This is the course code for psychology. So that might be of interest to me since my major in this case is psychology. So I'm going to click on it and see what it says. Okay, so in this case, I can see it's telling me it's a statistical methods of psychology. I can see the prerequisites. So in this case, it's telling me any math that I need to complete beforehand. Oh, and I see right here under the gen ed bachelor degree requirements, it says QB, QI. So I want you to remember that, and we're going to come back to it. But for right now, I know that it's in the QB category, which is statistics. So I can see that it is definitely going to count for statistics. And we're going to look at the QI in just a moment. So now for our intellectual exploration area requirement. So like we've mentioned in previous videos, 1 out of the 4 intellectual exploration areas that you have to complete at the U is automatically built into your major. So you'll see the fine arts area. In this case, the student still needs to complete 1 more, but they are taking in progress Art 1020 for fine arts. The student does need 1 more humanities. They've taken Block U Global Citizen. They need both of their physical and life and applied sciences. However, what you'll see here is where the social sciences should be is gone. So that's good to know. It's not a mistake. It's not an error. But what the degree audit system does is it recognizes that I have selected a major in psychology. So it's removed that area or hidden it, knowing that I'm going to complete those requirements through my major anyway, as psychology lies within the College of Social Behavioral Science. But when we're picking classes, this is also a really good tool to use when you're trying to see all of your options. As you can see, there's a ton. So this student has to pick 1 from all of those. So again, take some time, click through those, see what options sound fun or exciting or might double count for your major, because there are a lot of options that the U offers, and there's some really fun classes in there. In regards to the way that the physical life and applied sciences are broken out, we have some that are called a physical science or an applied science. So you'll see those different ones here, but basically you can choose 2 from within this area. They've just kind of broken it out to show you an SF versus an AS. That's the differences here. When moving through to the university bachelor degree requirements, this is where we see a lot of majors actually building this into your degree program. Again, so you can identify those classes by looking at the course prefix. So in this case, when I'm looking for any classes, I'm always going to want to see if there's anything with my major that pulls out a specific class. In this case, with the test of psychology, I see PSY 3010. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and see, okay, that's research methods of psychology. So again, I have some prerequisites to look at, but also in the gen ed bachelor degree requirements, I see QI and CW. So again, I'm in the CW area, which is upper division writing, and we're going to come back and I'm going to tell you about that QI. So in this case, diversity requirement, international requirements, sometimes your major will build these in, sometimes they actually double count with our gen ed requirements. You might see some fine arts, potentially like a humanities or something like that, double counting here. And again, you can identify that by clicking on one of these options to see what's available. It is good to know if you are wanting to participate in a study abroad, your international requirement can be fulfilled by going on that study abroad if you also wanted to save potentially some general education credits to take while you're there on that study abroad, but you will need to meet with an advisor ahead of time to make sure that that's okay. Now, as I mentioned, those QI requirements. So QI stands for Quantitative Intensive Requirement, and this is a requirement for all students pursuing a Bachelor of Science or a BS. As we know, the BA pertains more to our language classes if you're pursuing a Bachelor of Arts. So in this case, this is where they do double count for your major. And again, we know this because when I was looking above, we identified two classes. We identified Psychology 3000 and Psychology 3010 in above, counting for both my QB and my upper division writing. So again, clicking on those here, I see those designations again. So those I know would be a great choice for me because they're going to double count for two places within my audit so far. Now, going back up in the case of potentially that upper division writing, well, sure, I could take any one of these, but for the sake of time, completing requirements in a more timely fashion, having less on your plate at a time, it is a good idea to go ahead and pursue the one that your major might recommend. So this is why if you are still undeclared at the U, it may be a better idea to wait on taking some of these classes below, especially your QIs, because many majors build them in as an essential part of the degree. So what we've just gone through are the gen ed and bachelor degree requirements. And again, this is going to pretty much stay the same no matter what audit you run, except for one of the 4 intellectual exploration areas that may hide or pop back up depending on the major that you run. Here, if we keep scrolling to where it says major requirements, this is where things are really going to start changing. So again, it's going to show you the college, the major, the catalog years you selected, and then it'll just have some additional information for where the department is located, etc. Usually at the beginning, it's going to give you any special notes. For example, all psychology classes must have a grade of C or better to be accepted. So that would mean if you did take a credit for your psychology degree, if you failed it or got below a C, so even like a C minus, the department would require that you retake that course for it to count. Okay, so we can see here the minimum credit hour requirement is 41. So when I was talking about that 122 that's required, that's because some of our majors are a little bit shorter than others, or like psychology, they allow for a lot of double counting with your general education. So we do see in this case a lot of psychology majors either double majoring, adding a minor, etc., in order to get to that 122. So here, again, there's some notes. Of course, here we have the psychology upper division hours. So it's saying at least 25 psych upper division hours are required as a minimum. Now, this is really good to take a look at. Anytime you see a bunch of stars, now just a reminder, every major kind of outlines this portion of the audit differently, so not one's going to look the same. However, in this case, anytime you see a star, that means anything in that range. So this star with a 3 means any psych 3000 level, 4000 level, or 5000 level, and that is an upper division hour. So that's kind of what it's referring to. Major hours in residence, so this is just going to say 8 of the required 10 hours must be upper division. Again, just some notes for us. But where we really want to start looking is the pre-psychology course requirements, and it will tell you what you need. In this case, it's saying you need 1 course, so I know that's either going to be Psych 1010 General Psych, or in this case, you can take the honors version if you're in the honors college. So that's just giving me my options. And it will say 1 course. Sometimes it might say 3 credit hours, which doing the math, usually 1 class is 3 credit hours, so that would be 1 class. And we can keep going and see, okay, we've seen that Psychology 3000 and 3010 before. So if I go ahead and click on that, I will see there's that QB/QI. So this is what I was alluding to when I said this class triple counted, because this one counts for your QB, QI, and for the major, and this counts for your CW, QI, and the major. Now for your core course requirements, again, this is where the major is just going to kind of lay out everything for you. Psychology does give you quite a bit of choice. You can go ahead and click and read the following descriptions to see which one you want. And this is where you can see if potentially there are other places where classes can double count for your major in the future. You also have elective hours, so there will be some notes here that you can talk through with your advisor. If you see anything that says allied hours is are credits that are part of your degree, but they're not taught within the department in which you're majoring. So they can't be psychology elective or credit hours because that's what this area is. So allied means that your major or department has selected other departments from which they're allowing you to take their courses as part of the psychology degree. So that's how you know. Here we see anthropology, biology, chemistry. There's a lot of different departments here to choose from. And again, we're seeing those stars. So in this case, I know any anthropology upper division, any biology upper division, chem upper division, comm, all of these upper division classes can count for the degree. Usually you don't need advisor consent for that. As you can see, this student, their 2 classes that they've already selected have already counted as allied hours here automatically. Sometimes your major will give you a note that says need to talk to an advisor to make sure this counts. And of course, make sure you do that before proceeding to the course. Now here at the bottom, you can see in progress courses. So this should show you your current semester. So in this case, the student is enrolled in 12 full-time credit hours, and you can see what the student is enrolled in now. Anything here at the bottom, these will be general electives or courses not used in general education. So oftentimes these are sometimes major classes. Again, it's just going to kind of keep everything down here. If you have withdrawn from a course or a W, you will see that here. So that's an attempted course without credit. So that would be if you failed a course or withdrew. And here at the very bottom, so this is going to be a summary of all AP, IB, concurrent credit, anything else is going to live here. Now, in this case, the student only has placement scores from an AccuPlacer test that they took, but if you had any AP scores you sent to the University of Utah, if you had any transfer work sent from another university, it will all be here. You will also see next to the class, for example, if this class had been one that the student transferred in or took concurrently, if it was class matched, so if it was accepted as a course that we teach here and it completed a requirement you needed, it would have a note next to it. So that's how you know, and it would also be up here in your audit as counting for a specific credit or requirement or something like that. It's really important to make sure that you see the credits that you thought you would here in this place in the audit. That's how you can know whether or not the University of Utah Office of Admissions has received that information and if they've uploaded it to your audit. Keep in mind it can take several weeks for those to be sent into the university and what we call articulated. So once you've sent a transcript to the University of Utah, it can take several weeks. They'll go through, articulate everything, and put it in your audit, and that's where you can kind of see and make sure that it's counting. This is where you can do an advisor appeal if you feel like a class that you've taken should receive credit potentially for a general education or something like that. You can speak to an advisor. For general education, you'll want to come to us at the Academic Advising Center. For anything that you think should count for your major, you'll speak to your major advisor. And then here at the very bottom, this will keep everything you've ever taken at the U. So this is a summary of your full courses. So that's all going to house at the bottom of your audit, and it will say end of analysis. So this is a lot of information. This is a little bit longer of a video because there's a lot to look at here. I really recommend that you take some time, familiarize yourself with the audit, start clicking on things. It's really a good tool to start using when you're not only planning for classes, but when you actually apply for graduation. This is what the graduation office at the U will actually look at to make sure you're eligible for graduation. So if you ever see something or don't see something on your audit or see something that's incorrect, please make sure you speak with an advisor, because you don't want to leave this to the last minute if you see any red on your audit or anything that's incomplete, because that could potentially hold up your graduation. So with that, I recommend giving this a try, making sure that you run this before your advising appointments, just to make sure that you kind of know what's to expect. And again, anytime that you change anything in your student account in regards to classes, so this student at the end of fall semester, when grades are posted, they're going to want to run a new audit because this blue will turn to green and they'll have another semester of blue. So when you register for spring classes, you will have 2 semesters in blue. So make sure if you're trying to distinguish which class you're in now and which you signed up for, make sure you look at the date here. In this case, this one says fall 20. Thanks very much for watching this video, and I hope that it helped you learn how to run a degree audit.